I call Claire Curran.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is a fascinating bill. I'm really looking forward to actually the discussion in the Select Committee on this, because as the Minister said in his opening remarks, it is really about modernising the way that businesses interact with government and potentially and trying to provide the best possible framework for that to happen. Labor is supporting this bill to the Select Committee. You've already heard that. I have mixed views on my first readings of the bill and of the regulatory impact statement and of some of the submissions that went into the consultation around the development of this bill. On the one hand, I think the importance of the modernising of that relationship is critical. On the other hand, you've got to have in place the checks and balances to protect the privacy of business and those who sit behind the businesses, and you've got to ensure that you've got that balance right. On my first reading of the bill and the information accompanying it, I'm not sure that balance is right. And I think to put that in context, with the enthusiasm of the Minister getting up and talking about how it's all a great new world and everyone will have a New Zealand business number, etc., and it's all going to make things work a lot more smoothly. I think you've got to look at the track record of this government around its management of IT across government or its lack of management of IT processes across government, and it's also its management of privacy and its devaluing of privacy. And I'm certainly looking forward to the contributions that will be made by submitters on this bill, because this is where the rubber hits the road in terms of the ability for government to act in an efficient and modern way while ensuring that the entities that it's relating to are protected. The phrase that came to mind, Mr. Speaker, when I was reading this bill was it has the potential to be a big data grab. And that's where I would be raising the question marks and a bit of flag waving around that. This is the era of big data. This is the era of data analytics, of the ability of entities to use their ability to get as much data as possible to give them leverage. Government is a big entity, and how it manages the data that it gets from its citizens and from businesses is a matter of trust, a very important trust relationship. And and my concern is around where the checks and balances lie in this piece of legislation. And I'll use the analogy of security and privacy. In any society, it's absolutely critical that you've got an equal relationship between security and privacy. And at the moment, and for those who are listening to the radio, Parliament by radio, I'm holding up my hands in an equal way, is that in any society, security and privacy should be equal pillars. And in our society, the security side has gone up in terms of the way that national security legislation has been given more of a priority. personal privacy has been given a lesser priority. Well, what we're talking about in this bill is the privacy of companies, of business, of entities, and my concern is that privacy there could be some compromising under this bill, and what we have to ensure is that there is a level pegging around privacy and the ability for government to gather data and use that data and what that data is being used for. So and just to illustrate that, I'm going to quote from the cabinet paper that lies behind this piece of legislation, and which proposes, and this is all about the scope of this piece of legislation, and it says we propose to extending the NZBN to all entities trading in the New Zealand economy, including sole traders, non-incorporated partnerships and trading trusts, and to state sector and not-for-profit entities. Businesses not to be charged for allocation of an NZBN or to remain on the NZBN register, and a new local register managed by MB, etc., etc., etc. The most important part of that proposal is to extend the NZBN to all entities trading in the New Zealand economy, including sole traders, etc., etc. Now, so what that means is the scope of this bill includes the individuals who are operating as companies, and and there are concerns raised within the regulatory impact statement around what that actually means and what the implications of that are. There are concerns raised around whether or not it's compulsory to be on this register. And there are concerns raised around what sort of information is being collected. All of those things are absolutely critical. Now, in this day and age, it's time for us to have this debate. And so therefore, my mixed views around this bill are such that, I'm concerned about the track record of this government, but I certainly think that it's time to have this discussion because as I said, this is the era of big data, and and the ability to collect data is really important. But the way to do it in the most ethical manner, the manner befitting a government in a democratic society, one that is progressive, and is really one that puts privacy at the top of its agenda. Well, this government doesn't put privacy at the top of its agenda, and this is going to be the challenge in this debate. And I just want to draw the House's attention to the regulatory impact statement, where it says that overall privacy risks, and this is on number 22, I think, of the regulatory impact statement. Overall privacy risks to individuals and costs to society of identity fraud are likely to outweigh benefits to business and to government. And this is actually being specified in the regulatory impact statement as being a key risk. The Privacy Commissioner did provide advice alongside other entities such as Business New Zealand, and it's noted that the bill takes into account some of that advice, but certainly doesn't take into account all of it, and so that's why the submissions from the Privacy Commissioner and anyone who cares about privacy is going to be very important. And they've set out a series of issues that they think are critical, which include that this bill should include, which includes a clear statement of purpose for the NZBN and the register that is not overly broad or unclear, a specific limitation that restricts the use of the NBN to businesses' purposes only, and a prohibition on its use for non-business purposes, such as social service purposes, a definition of the personal information that may be collected, clear maintenance of the Privacy Act prohibition against an agency requiring an individual to disclose a unique identifier for a purpose other than that for which it was issued, and an explicit prohibition against agencies using the NZBN for a purpose other than that set out in legislation. I'm not sure that that exists in this legislation. Finally, they say an explicit prohibition to prevent agencies from requiring an individual to provide an NZBN in order to receive a service
Sorry to
or
interrupt the
interact
member,
with
but her
government.
time has expired.